You're very welcome along to episode 2 of the Keith Andrews Show. We've got Owen Sheehan in the hot seat today.
Thank you very much, Keith. Thanks for having me.
No problem. It's always a pleasure to have you in the house. Later in the show, we're going to have Liam Lawrence on Skype. We'll also have Daryl Horgan join us. We'll be chatting about all things from Premier League, Championship, Super Cup. But starting with you and your new lifestyle.
My new lifestyle. It's always been my lifestyle, Keith. Nothing new about it.
Let's tell everybody where you were last night.
No, it was. I was over at the premiere of All or Nothing, which is the Manchester City documentary, the Amazon Prime documentary, chronicling last season. Quite a fortunate storyline to get, where camera crew goes in and.
Fortunate it wasn't the year before, weren't they?
Very fortunate. Very, very lucky that it wasn't. So they got lucky. You do wonder, actually, how many of these documentaries have been made and subsequently scrapped if we would have seen this thing if they didn't have such a great season last year. And you also do wonder as well, you're always a little bit sceptical about at what point did they start filming and how authentic is it? But Vincent Kompany was there last night and he was saying that the cameraman was everywhere. He'd wake up one morning and he'd be on his bedroom floor and stuff like that. And it's like,
there was a bit of controversy last year at games. So at Premier League games, before and after, I would be in and around the dugouts, pitch side, tunnel, waiting for team news, things like that. And then if I was working with a commentator, sometimes he might have to do the interviews after a game. And there was a little bit of animosity between different broadcasters, the fact that these Amazon cameras were getting everywhere, especially for Man City home games, because obviously they were making this documentary. So it hasn't pleased everybody, but they very much got behind the scenes, didn't they? Very
much so. Like, you talk about kind of post-match interviews, and just to kind of start at the end a little bit here, so we got to see episode 1 last night. Episode 2, that they kind of showed a little bit of a teaser for at the end of episode 1, is very interesting. They're going to get some really good stuff out of Sergio Aguero, talking about loneliness and living on his own in England and all his family being in a different continent. So in terms of actually speaking to the players, they've got that. But as you say, the main thing here is the access, the actual first-hand viewing we get of Pep Guardiola in the dressing room. Because I always wondered, are his histrionics, for lack of a better term, on the sideline, are they for real? Is that sort of an act to try and gee his players up? Or is he actually that energetic?
And was he?
Of course he is.
Tactics board in the middle of the dressing room, holding court.
Yeah.
Animated.
Like, he loves the process of the little metallic object and the magnetic function of it all. I think he just loves that. He loves the tactics board. His kind of behaviour in the dressing room is extraordinary, really. It's like, it showed clips of them in the dressing room after Kevin De Bruyne scored to give them that 1-0 win against Chelsea near the start of last season, when we thought that they were going to win the Premier League after that day. And everybody's in the dressing room and Pep Guardiola starts the "Oh, Kevin De Bruyne" chant. And it's fantastic. It's
Pep Guardiola started
Pep Guardiola, I was like, it's phenomenal. So it's a lot of energy behind the scenes. They go into the pre-match meeting when they have their tactics board before the Liverpool game, where Mane kicks Ederson in the face, and they just cut off the meeting just at the time when it was going to get very, very interesting about how they were going to react if Liverpool did a certain thing. So there's a little bit held back, but overall it's a brilliant viewing of what actually goes on in there. One of the big things we learned last night was the Kevin De Bruyne injury, because all the first team were there.
Literally happened yesterday in training, didn't it?
Yeah, and he showed up in crutches. I think there was a little bit of a gasp. Like, the theatre was like full of City fans, obviously, over there. And when he walked in, it was like, is that De Bruyne on crutches? Him? Yeah. So that was
we'll go on to him in a minute, because that's going to be a huge blow. There's talk at the moment, isn't there, 2 to 3 months, maybe medial ligaments, and it's an injury that he's had before. But go back to Pep for a second. So you see Pep, not so much last year, but certainly in his first year at Manchester City, did not like doing interviews, full stop.
No.
Arm's length, media, lots of tetchy interviews. So for him to allow this to happen, obviously it wasn't his decision, but he's gone along with it, and it seems as if he's kind of, okay, you're in.
Yeah.
I'd heard I know the kit men very well at Manchester City. They speak so highly of him as a person, the way he's got everybody together. But this documentary and this series I think it's going to blow people away, is it?
I think so, yeah. Like, as I say, it's going to get more and more interesting as the season goes on. As we only saw the first episode yesterday. Like, obviously, it's not his decision to do it, but he did seem to accept it. The decision to do it comes from much higher up. And ultimately, the people who are much higher up are probably a little bit less afraid of what's actually being shown here, because it's about their own brand as well. The Begirissteins, all those sort of lads in the dressing room, or in the boardroom, I should say. And some of that stuff was very interesting when they get inside the conference room. Like, speaking of a serious injury and a man on crutches, when Benjamin Mendy goes to Barcelona and gets gets his operation on his what was his
Cruciate,
anterior or cruciate last year. It cut straight to the boardroom in Manchester City with about a dozen suits sitting around the table saying, right, Benjamin Mendy's probably going to be out for 6 to 8 months. That means we need to go into the market in January. And it was just such a cold, calculated
see, that surprised you a little bit, didn't it? Whereas I think people don't realise that you are literally a number.
Yeah.
And players a lot of times get criticised, sometimes not rightly in my opinion, because you've seen an example there and they've been quite open about it, about we need a new left back. That's it. Mendy to them didn't matter last year. Getting him right and the medical care that he got obviously was that was in place. But as soon as you are not ready and able and good enough in their eyes to be participating at first team level, not interested in you. Yeah,
especially it's very interesting that Mendy was the example, like coincidentally, because he's such a big character and such an important character in the dressing room. Like after that, to go back to that game and they beat Chelsea 1-0 near the start of last season, he's FaceTiming the lads in the dressing room. Immediately afterwards, they've got Mendy on the phone from Barcelona, and they actually kind of do a little bit of a goggle box in the documentary where Mendy is watching that game and is celebrating. So that's pretty cool.
Guardiola gave him a little bit last weekend after the Arsenal game, didn't he? Well, that's Mendy. And then he basically drives you crazy, but he can do these exceptional things as well, and he needs to stay off social media.
Well, that was an interesting line. And obviously Mendy replied to the tweet on Twitter, which was quite funny. Like just in terms of that, they like kind of a last point on it. They go to like a player cam in it as well, where Kyle Walker is walking around the back room with a camera basically, and he's chatting to some of the lads. He chats to one of the physios, and it's like, so who's the hardest lad to work with? And he's like, it's that Fabian Delph guy over there. He's after getting a big head there recently. And Fabian Delph was like, ha ha ha, you bell. And it was like, it got the biggest laugh of the night, which I thought was quite cool. But like, you're always interested in how like the English players interact and how the English and the non-English nationals react, because like Silva was talking in the documentary, David Silva, but he was speaking exclusively in Spanish. Like Aguero's the same, and you do forget how poor a lot of the English is of a few of these City players. But
I've been there a long time.
Yes, exactly. So also the last thing just on that, on the Spanish nature of things, the music is shite in the dressing room. It's like Despacito, but even worse than Despacito after games. So I don't know, is it Pep selecting the music or is it one of the South American players selecting
But he's
music?
big on high energy in the dressing room, isn't he?
Yes.
He wants that type of atmosphere, whereas we were chatting a little bit beforehand and that would have been very much the kind of atmosphere that I would have been used to in dressing rooms coming up, playing the youth team. It was always music based. Whose CD have we got? Then obviously the iPods come out, playlists, and then as you get older, the atmosphere in the dressing room just started to decline. People have their own headphones in, doing their own thing. It's very hard to get music to suit 25 grown men.
Did you ever have the playlist at your disposal?
Yeah, I would have had playlists, and it would have been probably more dominant as I got older, and look, we're playing this, end of.
And what would said music be?
I'm quite varied with my music taste, I really am.
Everybody says that.
But like ABBA to Bob Dylan, like that's a bit of a jump, isn't it?
Pretty good.
Yeah,
There's a good spectrum.
Johnny Cash, Ring of Fire, that was always a favourite. There's always sign of some song, you know, if you've achieved something at a club or you've had a night out or a pre-season night out or a team bonding exercise, and then the song of that time or that summer, that's the one that always kind of sticks out, and you normally get, oh, that's our song, so that's normally the one where you play before you go out, just before a game.
So what would those ones be for you then? Obviously it's not
Ring of Fire was a big one.
But like that's not the song of any of the summers of your playing
No, not
career.
summers, but it was, I don't know how it came about. It might have been a night out or karaoke or a sing-song or something like that, and it basically just bang, literally just caught fire.
And how did the younger players in the squad react to, you know, Bob Dylan and all that sort of stuff?
You can get told to, you can give them their 5 minutes on the iPod for a degree, but that's all they're getting. But no, we used to share it out as we got older, right? You can play the music before, and then managers would be coming in going, what is this nonsense? To be fair, like as I got older, the younger players, they would have lost me, but I was in that position as well 20 years ago, and all the older players would be going, what are you doing playing? And I would play Irish songs obviously to wind up the English ones. Obviously didn't go down too well.
It's probably Stormzy all the way these days.
I don't even know who that is, and I'm not joking you. Right. I want to talk about Arsenal. Man City, comfortable win. You are a big Arsenal fan. Tell me first and foremost, were you happy with Unai Emery being appointed? And what did you think of the opening weekend against City last week?
I was very happy when Unai Emery was appointed. Like, there's a lot of kind of rewriting history going on this week, I think, with the Unai Emery appointment. So people just need to chill out for a moment and just leave this play out for a couple of more games and see actually where this thing is going. Like, when it was him versus Mikel Arteta, like, you have a situation where Arsenal were being compared constantly to the post-Alex Ferguson era in Manchester United, which was completely stupid, considering they were coming off winning the Premier League. Arsenal had come off the back of not qualifying for the Champions League. So this is a very different base. There is a very big peril that if you make a Moyes-like decision at Arsenal, things will go wrong to the point where suddenly settling for a non-Champions League place becomes the norm. Settling for potentially even lower than 6th could become a distinct possibility, which would be a disaster, which would be far more catastrophic than anything that happened post Alex Ferguson at Manchester United. So they needed something safe, and Unai Emery was the safest option there. He plays a decent brand of football, he's got decent clout, he's got a good track record, and he has overachieved previously, namely with Sevilla. So I think he was the outstanding option in terms of available managers. Now, when you come to last Sunday, I can see the criticism and I can see where it's coming from, but this is one game, like,
against the best team in the country.
Against the best team in the country, but also this kind of the big Sam quotes during the week were very strange, like talking about how it's a waste of time.
I think Sam's gone into the destruct mode. I think he's in the mood for throwing grenades.
I think so too.
In every quarter.
Like, I do think he had a point in some of the things he was saying. The point he didn't have a point about was that, like, Arsenal should just give up trying to play it out of the back, or they should not attempt to play it out of the back against Manchester City, which is a little bit counterproductive, you know. Like, if you look at maybe the way Liverpool played against them last year, the only team to beat them in the Premier League, I mean, there is a template there, but this is also the brand that Unai Emery has. I do think Big Sam is onto something when he talks about Petr Cech. Like, at what point does Petr Cech become an Ederson or become a player who's good with his feet? I think the answer to that is never.
Oh, well, it's not going to happen, is it? So if you want to play from the back, you obviously need that type of keeper.
But they signed a new keeper and they don't start him. What's the idea behind that?
I have to be honest. I've seen a little bit of him from his time in the Bundesliga. I don't think he's one where you think you are going to be our number one. It's one of those where he comes in, and I thought instantly, okay, he's a better number 2. So if anything happens, I'm not a huge fan of David Ospina. He will probably leave, and so he's not going to be the answer to the level that you need for if you want to get into the top 4.
Like, Cech had an absolute nightmare. Like, you obviously saw the situation where he almost scored an own goal, which would have been just like pure Schadenfreude when it comes to Arsenal. It would have been so perfect almost for the direction Arsenal are going. It would have just summed everything up. But like, just give it a little bit of time. The whole piling on Unai Emery's style after one game is hilarious.
I think it's nonsense. I really do. I think, go back to the appointment, very good. When you're talking Arteta, you're talking Vieira, this is a lot more secure. And I'm slightly different. I don't think it's safe. I still think it's a good appointment. Someone who's vastly experienced, dealing with huge egos last year, and there's still a few in that Arsenal dressing room. But I think his hands are tied. Yeah. Financially, in the last few years, they've bought players, Mkhitaryan being one. Mkhitaryan's work rate on Sunday was nothing short of atrocious. Yeah. It's saying something when Mesut Ozil is working harder than you. Like, if I went home after a game and Mesut Ozil had worked harder than me, I don't think I'd go in the next day. He is a disgrace when he's out of possession. Mkhitaryan has obviously clearly taken that mantle and thought, I'm going to run with this year, because he was nothing short of a disgrace out of possession down that right-hand side. What do you think Kyle Walker's going to do? He's going to overlap, and young Maitland-Niles left hung out to dry. I think he's signed solid citizens. Guendouzi in midfield, decent debut.
That's the thing. Like, if you talk about Mkhitaryan being outrun by Mesut Ozil, well, Granit Xhaka looks across and he sees a 19-year-old Guendouzi completely outplaying him. And I know Guendouzi made a couple of errors, but I think those errors were...
You expect that from young players, though.
You do.
And he's going to make them, but I don't think that's the issue. He showed bravery getting on the ball. I've seen a couple of the pre-season games. I thought he's shone. And do you know what else about him? He's not afraid to tell senior players. He looks around as in any chance of you tracking back. He's got a massive job on his hands, Emery. Huge. Really has. And I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
I wonder, was the Pep and Mikel Arteta celebration after the Bernardo Silva goal pointed? Or was it a particular move that Arteta had come up with?
I think it was pointed. I think Arteta was nailed on to be the Arsenal manager. We'd already seen one of Pep's assistants go across to New York to be the manager. I think Arteta was probably lined up as well as the Arsenal manager. And I thought, as soon as I seen that, I thought, that was for you, Mikel, because that should be you in the other dugout.
Yeah, it's true. He's going to be a key player for Manchester City this season when you look at Bernardo Silva. But like, it's last year's recruitment. It's the recruitment of last summer, really, where Manchester City are going to reap dividends this season. Like, the De Bruyne injury, though, it makes it such an interesting title race. And you look at what else happened on Sunday in terms of like Liverpool and all that. And Naby Keita looks like he could be the signing of this summer. Just gone. So like that.
Well, let's chat about Liverpool. So comfortable start, took on this season where they've left off at the end of last season. Obviously not with the defeat against Real Madrid, but pre-season went and then that was the opportunity for him to cross first time. Whereas if he'd had gotten the half time first and then just played it, Robertson would have been up against the defender. So that I'm not taking away from Keita. I'm just saying sometimes we jump up and down about new signings. What I'm saying is they've got a very strong midfield. Henderson and Milner sometimes get lambasted for their performances, and they're the first ones to be jumped on. Where the new shiny signing, oh, look how good he is. And again, I'm not taking away from Naby Keita because I do think he will be a good signing. Now, the West Ham midfield, this has been a bit of a bugbear for me this week. Declan Rice, delighted he started for West Ham, obviously, big fan of his. Played in central midfield alongside Mark Noble with Jack Wilshere as a 10 just in front of that. Look, it was always going to be a difficult game for them. But you noticed on Match of the Day, maybe they might have been alluding to a deficiency in the West Ham midfield pointing towards Declan Rice. Would that be fair?
Yeah, definitely. That's certainly the leap that I took, and I don't think it's an unreasonable leap to take because the name that was mentioned was Mark Noble. They didn't mention any other names, but it was quite clear to see who might have been at fault from their analysis. So just basically to sum it up for people who mightn't have seen it, it was talking about their bank of four and talking about the three in front of them, Wilshere, Noble, Rice, just being too far away from them, or at worst one of them sitting there and then the other two pressing. So it was Jermaine Genius and Martin Keown giving out about how half the team was pressing, half the team was hanging back, and that at some stage the defenders would then need to jump out and give Mark Noble a little bit of help. So they were pointing out that Mark Noble, poor Mark Noble, they were saying, all on his own at sea in the middle of midfield, not getting enough help, 4 Liverpool players around him, and in between that channel, in between the back four and the midfield three, Liverpool and Keita in particular could just get in. So I'm making the leap that Declan Rice is out of position all the time, according to that Match of the Day analysis. But it's,
Right.
I'm getting the sense here that you don't necessarily agree with that.
I really don't. So as I was watching the first half, I was thinking, right, you're getting played through too easily, absolutely. You're stuck in between. So I've been there in that position where you can't get pressure on whoever's on the ball. So then once you can't get pressure, you can't engage. If I can't go to you and close down and affect the ball, if I come to here and you can play around me, you're in no man's land. So I felt the West Ham midfield for the majority of the game, never mind the first 45 minutes, were in no man's land. They were neither stopping balls through to Keita, Firmino dropping as a 10 because that's where he likes to play. But when I'm looking at the game, I'm seeing Declan Rice as the one who's wanting to go and press. And on a couple of occasions, he did try to instigate that press. So as the ball's played to you from a fullback and you're in central midfield, he's gone to engage you. But as he's gone, he's looking around thinking, who's with me? Nobody's with me. So as he goes, your midfield partner should go, your back four should come up, and as a team, it should be literally bang. We've seen Atletico Madrid do it last night. They do it so well as a team. He was hung out to dry, been taken off, because people will look at that and think, taken off after 45 minutes. Declan Rice clearly hasn't played well. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. So defensively, he knows exactly where he should be. Zonally marking, trying to cut those balls. Very difficult when you're playing with Mark Noble, who is a solid citizen.
Yeah.
Jack Wilshere, don't get me started on him. Absolute luxury. Don't know what he did on Sunday. I really don't. So you win the ball back when you're defending deep, you're defending as that unit. Very rarely did they have a pass. That's why they kept on. And Liverpool are on you, aren't they? They're relentless with their press.
Yeah, I do wonder, is that the best way to come up against Liverpool, the high press? Like, is the ball over the top to the likes of Mane and to Salah not a devastating ball? Like, was it not in West Ham's interest to sit a little bit deeper and for the three lads to drop back? And
I don't see that as a problem. Like, it's not an issue where, like, you have to. It depends on the personnel. So they're back forward, they're midfield. Have they got huge legs and energy? No, they don't. So you have to sit relatively deep for that ball that you were talking about. Salah making that run from out to in particular.
So maybe Rice wasn't following Pellegrini's instructions. Maybe wasn't instructed to press, and maybe that's why he got taken off.
Yeah, but they were bopping him anyway. So you have to try and... They weren't laying a glove on him.
Sure.
It was as if it was like, right, this is a training ground little shape routine we're going to do, and shuffling across without actually... You've got to lay gloves on players. You've got to get stuck in at the right time. And he was the one trying to instigate that. I just felt he was hung out to dry.
Is that something that Pellegrini, I wonder, can work? Like, I do wonder, looking at that West Ham team, it's kind of on a very different level, the analysis around Arsenal as well last week, where it's like, hold on a minute, this is one of the best teams in the country you're coming up against. It's very difficult to come up with a defensive structure that is going to look good on a given match against Liverpool. So I think that is one glaring issue here. But also, that should be the main reason why Pellegrini needs to give him another chance. And also, like I was kind of saying, Rice might have been doing that against Pellegrini's instructions there, kind of being devil's advocate a small bit, because surely he's not. Surely the young lad isn't going out there saying, screw it, that guy's saying, I'm going to go and chase down the ball.
I've said this before, he's a very mature young player, beyond his years, the way he plays the game, the positions he picks up. But the other day, and again with Pellegrini, I'm just looking at this more so from an Irish perspective, because I've got a keen eye on Declan Rice, and I felt if I was a younger player in that position, I would have been in the dressing room, and I've been there. I remember Glenn Hoddle took me off in a game when I was playing for Wolves at half time. I was in the midfield, I think Paul Ince was playing and Alex Ray, another senior pro, and he changed the system from a 3-man midfield to go with 2, and I used that term, and I shouldn't have thrown my boots across the dressing room, but saying it was a cop-out, taking the young player off, and I just felt that was what happened on Sunday. But for Pellegrini, Anfield, first game, the whole optimism and excitement around this Liverpool team, it was a tough start. So I can't judge Pellegrini on that. A little bit like Arsenal against City.
West Ham though, isn't it? Things can go wrong very, very quickly there. Yeah. It's very ironic, isn't it, that West Ham are kind of the team you look at and you're like, bad business. If only there was a couple of more weeks in the transfer window. Oh wait, Karen Brady was the main reason why this thing is already closed.
Right, we got to move on. We are going to hear from Harry Arthur. He was on the show with Joe and Kev earlier this week. Let's see what he had to say.
Because I saw a really brilliant quote from you last year, and you were talking about all the players who arrive in the Premier League. It's very much a global league now. And you were saying, you know, back in the past, I used to see top clubs paying big money to bring in foreign midfielders, and there was a thought in my mind that I could do as good a job as them if I got a chance at a big club. But then you said, but I've changed my mind on that now. He says, when you play against some of these guys, they are on a different level. There are some talented sportsmen in the world. Some are just born bigger and better than you might have been. Some of the guys you come up against in the Premier League are just massive physically and so gifted as well.
Yeah, and you know, I still back that up now, because you look at some of the players that are brought in, especially to the top 6 clubs. And there's some unbelievable players. But one thing I will say, that I don't think that is completely fair on the British and the Irish market. If you look at it, this summer, it was really poor for English and Irish and the players that have been brought up in this sort of part of the world. It was quite poor, because Wolves and Fulham, 2 clubs that stick out, that they went crazy with their signings, and you kind of scratch your head and think, if it works, then brilliant. But if it doesn't, then why not give that chance for the players that got you promoted, for example.
It's Harry Arthur there, chatting a little bit about moves. One player that has moved this summer, and we're delighted to join us on the line, is Daryl Horgan. Daryl, thanks for joining us.
No bother, lads. How you doing?
Very well, very well. Listen, tell us, you've made the move to Hibs from Preston. Tell us a little bit about how that come about.
Well, I suppose kind of the end of the season, last season, it looked like I was going to be leaving Preston. It just looked like that was what's going to happen from the season before. The lack of games, and kind of just Hibs was always kind of on the radar, and it looked like it was going to happen once or twice, and for whatever reason it was stopped or didn't happen. But then just came up on the Thursday that it looked like something could happen. Preston said that they were willing to sell me, and I got on the Hibs straight away, and thankfully they were still in a position to make that move.
You were such a key player for Dundalk, and obviously a first team regular. How frustrating was it to then go to being a player that very much on the periphery, and having to, like, I've seen you at games where you're itching to get on, you're warming up, and it's very difficult, isn't it, as a player, preparing them week in, week out in the right way, to then going into the game on a weekend where you're not quite sure how many minutes you're going to get.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult. Obviously, you're coming in after games, you're doing the runs after games, you're training on the Monday. You know, everyone else is recovering, then you're coming in Tuesday, Wednesday, and you're just trying to put your best foot forward and training the whole time, do everything you can, and you know you're dying for anything really. 5 minutes, and towards the end, I was just looking to get on the bench to be a part of it. You know, which was, I suppose, when you really think of it, it's quite depressing. Nearly, you know, that all you want to do is just be involved, and you know, unfortunately, you don't get that opportunity. So yeah, it was really difficult. Obviously, even at Dundalk, I've always played, and under, I suppose, Simon Grayson, I was always part of the plans. But unfortunately, when the new manager came in, it just wasn't to be. He just had other players he preferred, and you know, that was it really.
Alex Neil spoke about you in glowing terms since your departure and how it came about. That, I know it's small comfort, I suppose, but in terms of you've had to move on, it's still nice that a manager that didn't play you as much still speaks about you in those terms. I think Daryl's just lost. He's gone a little bit. I think it's a good move for him. Hopefully we'll be able to get him back up. I'm going to ask him where he sees the move in terms of, was it backwards, sideways, forwards, but from being such a big player and playing on such a big stage at Dundalk, to then go, himself and Andy Boyle, obviously. Andy Boyle hasn't quite worked out either. He was on loan at Doncaster last year. It's a good move for him, as long as he gets the minutes that he's clearly craving on the pitch.
Well, yeah, the minutes are the absolute vital thing here. I mean, it's all part of this journey where I can only imagine the amount he's learned from Preston is incredible, and I think we actually have him back in the line now.
Daryl, you're back with us,
Sorry
thankfully.
about that, lad. Sorry
All
about
right.
that. I'm with the old technology.
I don't know how much you heard, but I was mentioning about Alex Neil speaking about you, even though, look, I'm not saying you didn't get on eye to eye, but what you want from your manager, obviously, to be playing week in, week out, that didn't happen for you under Alex, but he still spoke about you in glowing terms. That, I suppose, small comforts, but it's still nice of him to speak about you like that.
Yeah, look, definitely. Obviously, the most important thing for your manager is to be playing you, and that's what you really want more than anything. But look, I have a lot of respect for him. He's done a brilliant job there. You know, he's with a club with a very, very small budget, you know, made them very, very competitive in that league. Obviously, they were under Simon Grayson, but they've probably come up another level since, you know. And, you know, he'd always kind of said, you know, just lads, we're just ahead of you. You know, he was quite honest and quite decent about it, in the sense that, you know, obviously I wanted to play every week, but, you know, he kept saying it's just not here for you at the minute. And then when the opportunity came to leave, he was okay about it. He let me leave, and obviously, you know, he said what he said. I suppose, you know, that was just a bit down to myself. Just all I wanted to do was play football, and I worked very hard to try play in that team, and it just never happened for me.
So where do you see this move then? So huge step up going from Dundalk to Preston, huge expectations in this country in particular for you. Where do you see this move in your career? Is it a side step? Is it a step down? Where do you see it?
I think it's a sideways step. Potentially, probably it's a step up for me, like, because I'm coming from not playing to hopefully playing. You know, the aim is to come up here and try get myself in the team. You know, the lads have done really well so far this season, so it's not going to be easy to get myself in. But the plan is to get myself in the team. And if I can play, well, that's definitely a step up from where I was, because I suppose the last 10 games of last season, I wasn't even in squads, you know. So the aim is now to play and, you know, compete at the highest level I possibly can. Obviously, put myself forward to play for the Irish team, and, you know, first and foremost, I suppose, try get into this team and try play and try make it as competitive as possible in the league and hopefully Europe.
You mentioned about the Irish team. You've got 4 caps, clearly keen to add to that. How much of a factor was that in your decision with a new campaign for Euro 2020 on the horizon?
Yeah, massive. You know, I spoke to the manager after the US game, and he said, "Look, you need to play. You know, I'm going to games, watching Preston, and you're not even involved. So the priority for you has to be playing games." So, you know, I completely understood, and, you know, there's no God-given right to play games anywhere. So I'll have to play well and have to work hard. But I spoke to the manager here at Hibs, and he said, you know, there'll be opportunities if you're playing well. So that was key. Look, everyone wants to play for their country. You know, everyone, as a kid playing football, you know, you dream of playing for your country at World Cups and competitions. So that was always what I wanted to do, and if I can get that opportunity a few more times, it'd be absolutely fantastic.
You must see it as an opportunity, though, if you are playing regularly at first team level, that there's places there up for grabs. I certainly feel there is in the position you play. We've obviously seen James McLean play as a centre forward at times. We're not inundated with out-and-out wingers, which obviously you are. So you must feel like there's a little opportunity there for you.
Yeah, look, obviously I didn't play much at all last year, but the manager kept bringing us in, and played me twice towards the end of the season against Turkey and the US. So he obviously sees something there, and hopefully if I can just get maybe a few more games on the belt, get a bit more, I suppose, confidence back in my own ability and things like that, get used to playing football again, then hopefully I can just improve and kick on, and who knows.
Can't let you go without asking about the All-Ireland on Sunday. Galway going to make it 2 in a row?
They have to. They have to. I'd love to see it. Like, it'd be a good game now, but they look really strong again this year. So, I'd be quite confident.
Listen, Daryl, thanks very much. Appreciate you taking the time, and good luck this season.
Brilliant. Thanks,
Cheers,
man. See you later. Bye.
Genuinely delighted for him. Keep an eye on Irish players, where they're going, being in his position. Wasn't very good at being a squad player or someone who was preparing for a game all week, not knowing whether you're going to be. I remember when I was at Wolves, I used to travel to a game, and genuinely, I didn't know whether I was going to be starting, sub, or not even sub. That's where I was at. I was about 21, 22 at the time, and the Dave Jones, and what I was saying to you about Paul Ince, Alex Ray, Colin Cameron, all these players that were playing ahead of me, didn't know where I was going to be. So I was going to a game thinking, I could be back on this bus in half an hour after he names the team, just sat there for all afternoon, or watching the game from the stand, or I might be playing. So difficult.
So they'd bring you along on the team bus even if you weren't going to be in the squad?
Yeah, well then it was 16 players in the squad, 5 subs, and they would bring 18 to 20 players. So quite often you'd be on the 17th, 18 players. It was so frustrating. It really was. And he's talking about, and I seen him last year. I did a couple of Preston games, and I seen him sub on one occasion after the game running, and he's talking about in on the Monday there's a 2-day recovery for the players that started. You're on a different kind of training schedule to the rest of the starters. It's so frustrating. And the other thing I'll say about him is he's keen to add to his caps tally.
Yeah.
I was always making sure I was playing first team football because I didn't want the Irish manager leaving me out because of what I wasn't doing at club level. So he's made a good decision, I think, and I think he's right. I think it is a sideward step, but it won't be if he's playing football. It'll be a step up, and he's playing at a very good level.
100%. It is very interesting. It's very clear that he rates the views of Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane very, very highly, and like he made no bones about it there. That was a factor in his decision. It was a factor. He wants to play for Ireland again, and he was told in pretty blunt circumstances there by Martin O'Neill, it seems, that, listen, I'm going to see all these Preston games and you're not playing. I thought that was a very interesting line from Daryl there, but it must be so demoralising when you've started so well, and you're always aware of the precarious situation involved in football, but particularly when the manager who signed you leaves the club, and it was
difficult for him, and he spoke well about Alex Neil. Alex Neil spoke well about him. Sometimes as a player you need to force a move. He's got this move off the back of being a really good professional, really good fella, and Alex Neil even spoke about it during the week. He come in, he trains knowing that he's not really going to be involved, but still has that same attitude, still a nice person around the dressing room, which is important. It really is. And from Alex Neil's point of view, because he was really good around the place, he's not a bad egg to the rest of the players. It must have been tempting to keep him because he's a very talented player.
I was just about to say, I would say if Alex Neil had his way, he wanted to keep Daryl Horgan.
I think he's done the decent thing.
Yeah, I would have thought that he would be an ideal squad player, as you say, for the character that he is, but also for the footballer that he is when you get into the thrust of the kind of thick fixtures near the end of the calendar year, the start of the next calendar year, when injuries hit and all that sort of stuff. Daryl Horgan is a great person to have around the squad. So that's what Alex Neil was thinking, and that's a luxury with certain clubs in the Championship. And he does talk about the Preston North End resources and all that. You do feel for Preston North End, this is a pivotal season. The next couple of years are going to be pivotal for them because, again, talking about precarious positions in football, being a championship team that are constantly contending or constantly pushing towards that playoff positions, it can easily go south very quickly.
Yeah, very much so. Right, you weren't on AM this morning because of your jet setting lifestyle we've already mentioned.
Yep.
One man who was Mr. Tommy
Tommy Welsh?
Yeah, he was on there, and he's a little bit worried about football, soccer having an influence on his beloved hurling.
Summer soccer is coming. I thought we had no soccer players in Tullerhone. I think we have a few that play in town. So suddenly, say you're used to training 2 or 3 days a week, maybe a match, say twice a week, maybe a match at the weekend. Suddenly you've guys playing soccer on Saturdays. And then I hear that they only play Saturdays because it was the winter and it was dark during, so they might be even playing soccer in the evenings in the summer. Yeah. So what way do you do it now? So I think, you talk about complacency, we need to sort ourselves out.
Tommy, we're coming for you. It was on the dock here, and it's pronounced, and it's spelled WALSH, and I was like, I'm sure it's Tommy Welch. I'm positive it's Tommy Welch. That's why I made you say.
It's it's weird Tullerone spellings and all that sort of stuff. It's it's not phonetical, but it's the way he wants it to be pronounced.
I met him in once. We'd done a little launch, didn't we? He was up on the roof one of the days. He's a lovely fella, isn't he?
Yeah, but he's clearly fearful. The summer league gonna kill you, eh?
Tommy, coming for you, pal. I'm telling you, we are coming for you. Okay, championship chat time. Leeds, top of the league.
Yeah. Bielsa,
the revolution, started like a house on fire. Look, they started last season very, very well with Thomas Christensen in charge, but you never really felt that was going to continue. I have to be perfectly honest. I done the first game of the season against Stoke. They ran riot, thoroughly deserved the victory. Last weekend, they destroyed Derby County at Derby. Now, I covered Derby's first game and they won 2-1 against Reading. Probably should have been a draw. I said that
there's a 94th minute winner or something, wasn't it?
I said that night. It was written in the stars that Frank Lampard was going to get off to this type of start. And look, you obviously take them when you come, but they were annihilated by Bielsa's team at the weekend.
Like, I thought it was a very interesting result at the weekend. Like, I didn't see the game in full. Like, you watched the full thing. Like, I'm very curious to know what that is. Is it like immediate chinks in the armour of Frank Lampard as a manager, or is this Bielsa operation just going to be a roaring success?
Well, let's focus on Bielsa for a second. So all through pre-season, I'm watching the snippets of the games I can get to have a qualified opinion, reading the reports. There's all sorts going on. All sorts of different systems, a back three, he's playing midfielders, a centre-half, forward players interchanging, rotating. So going into the game against Stoke, Stoke's starting lineup was so strong, so experienced. What I felt was they could cause themselves all kinds of harm here, Leeds, by trying to play in this way because of the experience that Stoke have, nicking it and punishing them, making mistakes mainly in their own half. They were electrifying. They played a flat back four. It wasn't, as mentioned on the day, it wasn't a tactical masterclass. It was a 4-1-4-1. It was a one-holder midfielder and Calvin Phillips, full-backs high and wide, which we see all the time now. Lots of rotations. Again, what we see a lot from coaches in this day and age. But it was the intensity in which they played at, which he is renowned for. Now, one thing he is also renowned for, unfortunately for Leeds fans, is his teams don't finish the season very well because they are literally gone.
Well, I think it's fair to say, no matter how it started, the Bielsa thing at Leeds is going to end in disaster. It just depends. When is it going to end in disaster? It could be promotion to the Premier League and a fantastic first season of the Premier League, and then they almost get relegated. It is, of course, it is. I mean,
it's not though. I'm a lot more open-minded now. 2 years ago, Huddersfield. No way on earth anybody saying within the first 3, 4, 5 months of the season Huddersfield would keep going the way they started the season. Got promoted for the playoff final. Last year, Cardiff, one of the worst teams to watch in the division. Again, started off like a house on fire, kept going, got promoted. Hold my hands up.
I'm not saying it's going to end in disaster this year. I'm saying there's like a Jose Mourinho effect potentially.
But hang on. Disaster wouldn't be getting promoted and getting the sack.
Sorry, there is going to be a series of events that could be plenty of success, that could see the club see plenty of success. But eventually it's just going to be like, it's chaos. It's beautiful chaos that they're creating at the moment. And there's a very good chance, when you talk about early days, 2 games into the championship is like
Early.
not even dawn.
Exactly.
It's so early.
Yeah.
So like we can't get carried away with this yet. But as you say,
I'm just enjoying it though. I agree. They are constant. Look, Leeds, there's 3 massive teams in the division for me. Leeds, Aston Villa and Nottingham Forest, historically. And I've seen all of them play already.
be a great promotion if all 3 of them went up.
Leeds, not for the championship, it wouldn't.
Not for the chance. Well, you know, sorry, I was thinking
Fans
about the
won't
Premier
hear.
League there for a moment. I need to stay thinking about the.
But they've
championship.
been so far so good. But you're right, it's going to be a roller coaster as per usual for a Leeds United fan.
Just on that formation. So 4-1-4-1. So you've got 2 full backs that are pushing up high.
Yeah.
So what about the second bank of 4? Are those 2 on the wide? Are they kind of inverted wingers?
Yeah. So you've got Saiz plays as a 10. Alioski started on the left. Kemar Roof plays as a striker, and Hernandez. So it's and Click is the box-to-box midfield, 4-2-3-1, 4-1-4-1. I think it's a 4-1-4-1 because of the Calvin Phillips literally sitting in front of the back 4, but which in possession turns into just the 2 centre halves. You've got Click and Saiz playing as. They're so dominant in possession that they're not playing as midfielders. They're playing as 2 number 10s and running beyond Kemar Roof. So we talk about Firmino, the way he drops deep and the runners running beyond. Leeds are showing this in abundance.
So that's the Kemar Roof role, is the Firmino role.
Yes. Yeah, he's not an orthodox centre forward. I've seen him play a lot of Oxford. I scouted him for MK Dons. I really, really liked him. But he would have played one of those positions just behind the striker. My opinion, coming from the left was his best position. But he has shown, and I said it a couple of weeks ago, I've got to hold my hands up, I did not see him as a centre forward. And he has been outstanding. At times last year as a centre forward, but the start of this year, because Patrick Bamford has come in as well, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
For big money.
Is it going to be another classic? I thought last season's championship was one of the best. I think.
I said it last year, like, it's better again. This year again.
Do you think it's gone to another level again?
Yeah, I do, because of the story surrounding it. Before a ball's kicked, Lampard, Bielsa, Gary Rowett going to Stoke, the type of investment that we're getting from all areas. Teams are really, it's just a knock-on effect, isn't it, from the Premier League, the finance that are available. It's dripped down. There's so many teams. There'll be 14 teams, minimum, I would suggest, thinking that they can get promoted.
It's one of the best sports divisions in the world, in any sport.
Yeah.
Like, it's fantastic. It's glorious.
You get, like, I'm always in here, and I think you'll testify this, I always rave about championship games. The first weekend, I've seen 4 games in 5 days, blown away. The quality, Nottingham Forest, another one, who will be certainly within and around the top 6. I'd be amazed if they didn't with the investment and what I see in offer. Again, very early days. Can they sustain it? Not so sure. But then you've got other clubs like Stokes, who are hopefully going to chat to Liam Lawrence a little bit about. Aston Villa, more kind of pragmatic and experience and have the ability to grind results out. But I think that's also a trait that you need in the championship at times, no more so than Cardiff last year.
If you could only watch championship or Premier League matches for the rest of your life, what would you pick?
I'd have to say Premier League, because the elite of the top of the Premier League is just
Sky Sports aren't going to be happy with that, Keith.
Brilliant. But the top of the Championship is better than the bottom of the Premier League.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Because they go for it. There's atmosphere, there's excitement, there's adrenaline. Whereas you go to some of the bottom half of the Premier League games, they're a bit of there's fear, because they know what's at stake. And especially when you get to the last 10 games of the season, when every point seems just like crucial. But look, we've got Liam Lawrence on the line. We sorted out with Skype. Liam, thanks for joining us.
All right, mate.
What are you wearing? Is it sunny over there?
I've just been in the shower and got myself ready for this. So I'm just in the games room on the Xbox on Skype.
Okay, listen. Get everybody up to speed. I've seen you a little bit. We covered the Leeds Stoke game a couple of weeks ago. We've bumped into each other a couple of times, mainly at Stoke, where you are still going to a lot of games. Tell everybody what you're up to these days.
Well, I'm obviously trying to get into the media side of it as much as I can. I did want to go down the coaching route at the start of it, but while I was waiting for a job at Stoke, I sort of fell into the media side of it a bit, and I'm really enjoying it. As you know, we've had a few conversations about it, so we'll see what happens this year.
You're also doing your coaching badges. I think you were in with the FAI, weren't you, during the summer? Have you finished the A licence, or are you not quite there yet?
I've just got one assignment left to do, and then I'll be coming back over to Cork to finish it off next month. So, yeah, it's gone well.
Right, bring us right back to how it came about you becoming involved with the Irish team.
It was at Sunderland. Obviously, with Mick McCarthy being there and his his connections and stuff. I was doing well at the time, and he asked me about my background and things like that. And when I said I'd got Irish family and stuff, he sort of pointed me in the right direction and sort of gave me a lift up with it. And, it just progressed and went from there.
I would have to say you settled like snow within that squad. I know you would have known a few of the players playing with and against them at club level, but what were your first thoughts when you bounced into the Irish setup?
Well, I was obviously nervous, because of the accent and, being born over in England. I was nervous to how people would take me, but I was amazed at the time because they were so welcoming, and you obviously know the lads very well as well. There was such a good group that we had there, and they made me feel right at home from the first minute. So it was a pleasure to be there.
I think I've often said this about players that do come in that aren't born in Ireland. I think you can quickly tell why they're involved, if they're genuine or not. And I think certainly with the way you were speaking, you settled in really well. And the atmosphere that we had amongst that squad in the 2010 campaign, it was proper, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was awesome. It's rare sometimes, you'll know yourself when you go into a changing room or into a club, that things gel and get together that quickly. I mean, we had such a good mix, didn't we, of experience and then young, hungry lads that really wanted to do well. I mean, for me, it was an absolute honour just to be in the same dressing room as some of you. So to get that chance to actually play football alongside you was a dream come true, like. Now,
it was during Mr. Trapattoni's reign, obviously, where we both played, and I certainly got all my caps, you as well. What did you think when you came in, first of all, training-wise, the language barrier? I know we've spoken a little bit about this, and the tactics that he wanted from us as a midfield four.
Well, tactics-wise, everyone knew what was expected of them, didn't they? Especially us as a midfield unit. We were a rigid four, if you like, across the middle. We were solid and compact with our back four, and we knew as wide men as well. We had to be up, down, up, down, up, down. You had to work your socks off, and that's what he demanded. So, yeah, we knew what we was doing, and it seemed to work for us.
Yeah. What do you think of? Sorry, before I get on to that, actually, tell us a little bit about I think as soon as I think of you, and there's actually a picture of I've got very little memorabilia. Unlike you, where this is actually very impressive, your games room. There's one in my mother's kitchen, and there's a picture of the French game in Paris, and we're all lined up. So as soon as I knew you were coming on, I was thinking, I wonder what his highlights might have been. I know some people might think of that as a low light, but where would you put that in terms of your football and kind of memories?
That particular game?
Yeah.
It was obviously such a big game. It was huge, not just for us and the Irish people, but worldwide, wasn't it? It was a massive, massive game because France at the time were in a bit of turmoil, if you like. There was a bit of revolt in there, and would they get through? And we absolutely give them a right game, didn't we? And we were so unlucky on the night. I mean, to go there and to take that team right to the wire, when I thought we had them as well, it was a fantastic night. It was just, in terms of the disappointment, I mean, there was tears at the end and stuff, weren't there? It was horrible.
Liam, Keith just mentioned it there. Your setup in the games room is pretty cool. Some of the jerseys there seem to be class. Talk us through what's on the left wall behind you and the Sunderland jersey behind you as well.
Well, that's the Sunderland top that we won the league in when we went up. I don't know if I can move this Connect thing because it might go a bit.
Be careful.
I don't know. Yeah, so that's the Sunderland one. These over here, this is my first ever goal against South Africa.
Wasn't a bad free kick, that.
It wasn't bad, was it, mate? That one there, that's the first time I was in a squad. That was under Stan, actually, against Sweden. I don't know if you remember that game. We beat them 3-0 at home.
Yeah.
So I'll just keep some stuff, Stoke stuff, and that fella there.
Who's that? Who's he?
I don't know. It was
Anthony, is it?
But that's the one, mate.
Yeah. Look, you loved Ronaldo, didn't you?
He's the man, isn't he, though?
Just because you had the same haircut as him with those silly streaks.
Similar ability, though, I think he was.
Come on now. Right, listen, I want to move on to the current Irish team. What's your thoughts on them going into this new campaign? Optimism, I have to say, wouldn't exactly be high. What's your take on the current setup?
I think it's going to be tough. I think there's a bit of transition period, you know, with some players coming in and freshening things up. I know there is a bit of optimism back there with you guys, but you know, it would be nice if we could get off to a good start. That's for sure.
Well, Roy Keane's obviously a manager, someone you know quite well. Him and Martin have both been speaking about the lack of Premier League players available and being quite negative about it in terms of what they've got at the disposal. What's your take on that, about the lack of Irish players playing at that level?
Well, I think it's obviously going to be an issue. You know, you want your players playing at the highest level, and if there isn't that top quality of player that's playing week in, week out, you know, the best in one of the best leagues in the world, it's going to be an issue. So I can understand what they're saying, and you know, maybe they're saying certain things to cover their backs if it goes wrong.
We read a few quotes this week about Seamus Coleman talking about his apprenticeship, if you like, when he went over to Everton, and he was speaking about the difference now to, I think it was 10 years ago Seamus went over there, how much it's changed. And our apprenticeship, of course, would have been a lot of years before that. I went over in 96. I think you started at Mansfield. Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts on what he's saying about now the current breed being mollycoddled? Well,
I know I've got the same views on this sort of thing as you. I think we're very much similar. You know, it was so different when I was a YT at Mansfield. We had to clean kit, clean dressing rooms, make tea, clean boots. We weren't allowed to leave till 5 o'clock till the halls were mopped. It was just a complete different breed of player, and I don't know, it made me a stronger character, a stronger person, and I was able then, when I went into the first team, to be able to take things on the chin, like a disappointing result where the fans are on your case, and I don't know, certain things like that, you know, what build character. And nowadays, money's thrown at kids at 16, 17, 18. The hunger's gone before they've even got started. You know what I mean? I was on £150 a week with my first pro contract. Some of these lads are on 5-10 grand a week before they've even kicked a ball. So it's going to be the case, isn't it? You know,
it is a big issue, isn't it? And it's certainly something I'd like to get a little bit more into in the coming weeks. And look, time has obviously beaten us. You trying to sort out your Skype, unfortunately, delayed us a little bit, but you'll be back with us in the coming weeks, I hope.
Yeah, no problem, mate. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Before you want to go, Owen's got one for you.
Just one last one. It's one hell of a gaming headset you've got there, Liam. So I'd say you're a bit of a serious gamer. What are you playing? Is it all FIFA?
I don't play FIFA, actually. I don't like the football games. I used to have enough of that, obviously, playing and training. But I play Fortnite with my little boy who's 10 and Destiny and stuff. So, bit of a geek.
You're a fan of the Fortnite celebrations creeping into football then?
Do you play that too?
I don't play it now. It's
time for it.
It's too addictive.
Owen was at a premiere last night, Liam, in Manchester with the Man City crew. He was high-lifing it on the champagne and that.
Was he? One of them, is he?
He's changed. But listen, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch up to you again next few weeks.
No problem. Thank
Cheers,
you.
pal.
Thanks for having me.
Good fella, Liam, and I meant that. Settled unbelievably well into the squad and was such a crucial player for that campaign going into trying to get to 2010 World Cup. Trapp loved him, and he was a really popular player amongst the players. The way he played, and he was on up, down. He grafted and grafted.
Yeah, I'm delighted you reminded me of that free kick against South Africa. What a goal!
Quality, wasn't it? That was down in Munster's ground.
Yeah,
played a couple of games there, South Africa and Australia. They were good games, actually. It was nice to mix it up and go down there.
It's very interesting what he talks about there when it comes to hunger, and his getting a low wage at the start made him a little bit more hungry, that you obviously have this limited reserve of hunger, especially as a young person, and those big wages being handed out straight out of the academy are clearly just killing a little bit of that, which is interesting to hear that from a professional footballer, because it's easy for me to sit here anyway and say, too much money, goes to their head, but maybe there is truth in that cliche.
It's crazy though, because like I've spoke to him about this. That's why I wanted to ask him about it. So when I read that from Seamus Coleman this week, I thought, well, I'm definitely going to mention that to Liam. We've spoke about it, and you would think that we were kind of like 50, 60, 70 years of age, like old school ex-players that, in my day, like I've been retired 3 years. It's not as if I'm out of touch with the modern game, but we have such values that were instilled in us. Him coming through at Mansfield, the way I came through at Wolves and went on loan to lower league clubs, you appreciate things, and you look at some of them now, and again, like I kind of go, I sound so old, but it's not about being old and out of touch with the game. It's about core values that you learned. It was an apprenticeship. We all have to earn things in life, and then when you get to that next step of the ladder, whether it's from the youth team to the reserve team, the way it was then, you kind of have that sense of you've achieved something. Whereas now, at the top end, certainly, the money that's available and the money they're getting given so easily just to keep them under the umbrella of that football club in case they make it. But when they get to the age of 22, 23, after these contracts run out and they've been on loan here, there and everywhere, and they're cast to one side, where's that 30 grand a week on, lads? Hang on a minute. Oh, what? Sorry, what am I on now? Oh, I'm on 500 quid a week. Then they don't
life
care
shattering
about
stuff.
Yeah, and we're creating players that are socially inept, not able to deal with the real world because they're in this bubble that only a few will be able to maintain throughout their career. Chelsea being a prime example of it. I think they've got 31 out on loan at the moment.
Yeah, you would think like it would be for the benefit of the clubs themselves to actually instill some core values, but the problem is, giving the 30 grand a week is essentially going up against any core value, isn't it? So you're not going to be able to keep the young player and instill any values in them unless you're paying the big bucks. So it's just a lose-lose situation, and they can't get out of it really.
Yeah,
We've got a lot.
We've got very little time left. Tommy's in my ear telling me to hurry up. I really want to mention the Liam Miller game, complete sellout. I will be down there. What level I will be at, I'm not quite sure. Getting there. Doing a little bit. Not as much as Kilban, who's obviously a road runner, isn't he?
Yeah, up and down every single day.
He'll be doing the Liam Lawrence role in that game, up and down the left-hand side, I'm telling you. But look, it's a magnificent event that they're putting on. Glad we got there. We had all the issue about where it was going to be staged, obviously, but delighted to be involved, delighted that it's going ahead there, and there's going to be a serious amount of money raised for obviously a really good cause.
Are you going to put in any tough tackles? Have you got your eye on anybody sizing them up already?
Well, look, there's every chance I might not get a game. Martin's managing the team, isn't he?
Yeah.
So there's every chance I could be... Remember those games when I was going to them and I was like, not sure where I'm going to start, be on the bench or in the stands? This could happen. It's a Liam Miller game for me.
When you write the autobiography, the darkest hour was in Park Creven. I was sitting outside on the bus.
I'm sure it'll be a good day anyway. But listen, that's all we got time for. Thank you for joining us from your jet-setting lifestyle all across Europe in rainy Manchester. That's all we have time for this week on the Keith Andrews Show. Listen back to the show on the podcast if you've missed anything, and you can watch the show on the youtube.com/offtheball. We will be back next Thursday at 12:30.